Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stadium Stats. I'm Ben, and this week I have a guest.
Hi, I'm Jack, everyone.
We'll be going into our predictions for Week 14's games of the NFL. Before we get started,
Looking into the weather, there's at least 20-mile-per-hour winds in at least 5 stadiums this week, so could be a low-scoring week for the Rams, Ravens, Lions, Bears, Colts, Bengals, Jaguars, Browns, Texans, and Jets.
without further ado, though, let's get into it. First game of the week is Thursday Night Football, and it's a really not great matchup. It's the Patriots versus the Steelers. Maybe that's even an understatement of how bad this game could be. It was so bad that on the promo for this game, the Patriots didn't have a noteworthy player to be put up, so they put Bill Belichick against, who was it? Was it TJ Watt for the Steelers,
I think
probably?
it was TJ Watt.
Anyways, the Patriots are on a historic pace right now. They have lost 3 straight games while allowing 10 or less points to their opponents in each of those games. That's the first time since 1938 that has happened. Their defense is pretty good, but their offense is historically bad.
Their offense was already a bottom 5 offense, and then they lost, and then their starting quarterback got benched, their starting running back got hurt, and their starting receiver got hurt, and then their next best receiver got hurt.
Yeah. Ramondre Stevenson got hurt last week, unfortunately. They're without some of their receivers, as they've been without Kendrick Bourne for a while now.
And then Douglas stepped up, and then Douglas got hurt.
Oh, yeah. Wait, Douglas is hurt?
He's hurt, missed last week, might miss again Thursday.
Oh, that's... Okay, yeah. So, things aren't clearly not going well for the Patriots on offense, but their defense is pretty good. The Steelers, on the other hand, Kenny Pickett also got hurt last week. He's already confirmed to not be playing for this week. It will be Mitch Trubisky, who is not very good, but hopefully he can keep the offense afloat against the Patriots. It's probably going to be a very low-scoring game, as the Patriots let up very few points, and the Steelers tend to score very few points.
I think it could be high-scoring. I think that the Patriots' offense is just so bad, and the Steelers' defense is pretty elite, where the Steelers are just going to get good field position, score a bunch of times, and I think it could be high-scoring like that.
The only way I see this game being high-scoring is if there's defensive touchdowns. But, that being said, I think the Steelers will win this game. I assume you agree?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
It won't be close, I don't think.
I don't think it'll be... I think it'll be a relatively close game just because of how low-scoring it'll be. But I think the Steelers will completely outplay the Patriots.
Fair.
Moving on to the 12 o'clock window of Sunday. Our first game is the Texans versus the Jets. The Jets also have a historically bad offense. They cut Tim Boyle, who they started last week. Zach Wilson refuses to play, even though they wanted to start him this week. So it looks like it'll be Trevor Siemian, who maybe he'll do something. But
I like Siemian.
But he's not a starter in the league.
No.
The Texans, on the other hand, just lost Tank Dell, one of their best rookie players on the team. Great receiving weapon. Really unfortunate, big loss for them. But Nico Collins and the other receiving weapons they have on that team will step up in his absence. And C.J. Stroud is playing lights out regardless of who he's throwing the ball to.
We've seen him do good with just 2 receivers without Noah Brown and Collins. I wonder, this is really going to show if Tank Dell was really doing that much for the offense.
Yeah, well, this will reveal a lot about how that offense can perform without him. Hopefully Dalton Schultz will be back, as he missed last week's game. But I do think that the Texans should have this one pretty easily. Their offense is much better than the Jets, and their defense has been playing a lot better lately. Derek Stingley had multiple interceptions last week, and they had 3 interceptions against Russell Wilson, who had 0 in their 5-game win streak. So pretty impressive performance. Will Anderson, their rookie, who they drafted 3rd overall, also played incredibly last week. Had multiple sacks, or multiple big defensive plays, I should say. I think this is clear cut. It should be the Texans.
I think it's going to be close, but I think it will be very low scoring, and I think in a low-scoring game, the Jets won't have the offense to win.
I don't even know if it'll be that low-scoring. The only reason I kind of agree with you is because the Jets have a really good defense. And most Jets games tend to be relatively low-scoring. So you could be right, but it should be the Texans who win.
Yeah.
Our next game is Rams versus the Ravens. The Ravens, they're coming off a bye week in which, they didn't play. It was a bye week, but the Rams are coming off a win. Actually looked really good last week against the Browns. It was close for most of the game, but they ended up pulling away and ended up winning by, I think, 17 points by the end.
Won by a lot.
Puka Nacua had an amazing game. Cooper Kupp finally scored a touchdown again. Matthew Stafford playing great. And Kyron Williams has been the star of that offense. He's been unbelievable in the past few weeks.
I'm excited to see Kyron against the Ravens' run defense.
That'll be an interesting matchup. The Ravens tend to bottle up really good running backs, but Kyron has been exceptional over the past few weeks.
I think Puka might not play.
Oh, is he hurt?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be a big blow to the Rams. I do think the Ravens are going to win regardless of if Puka plays or not. The Ravens are one of the best teams in the league, and the Rams are good, but they're on the outskirts of the playoffs right now for a reason. Or not the outskirts, but rather like on the borderline of making the playoffs. So I do think the Ravens should have this one in the bag.
Yeah, I think they're really going to fight for that bye, and they're just not going to show any mercy.
The Ravens aren't going to show... Yeah, I agree. They're not going to show any mercy. They want that number one spot in the AFC.
Yeah.
Up next, we've got a divisional matchup between the Panthers and the Saints. Every Panthers game, the favorite is always the other team. I think without a doubt, every game this season, the Saints should probably win this game, even whether Derek Carr plays or Jameis Winston is their starting quarterback. Whether Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are playing, it seems like they're both healthy now and should be able to play. The Saints' offense they started off really sluggish last week, both on offense and defense, got off to a horrible start against the Lions, and then almost came back and won. The Saints' offense can be pretty good when it needs to be, but tends to not be against bad teams. So I don't think this will be much of an offensive performance from either team, but the Panthers are pretty abysmal, both on offense and relatively bad on defense. Not as bad, but not great. So I do see this as a pretty low-scoring game that the Saints would win.
I think it will definitely be low-scoring. A lot of low-scoring games this week. I think the Saints should pretty easily win. I'm a little bit concerned that they might not be able to get much going on offense, even though the Panthers' defense is not that amazing. I think the Saints should win, though.
I don't disagree.
I want to see Winston play.
I think it would be interesting, but I think regardless of who plays, they win.
I want to see Winston. Yeah.
Up next, we've got the Colts taking on the Bengals, and both of these teams coming off major wins. Both in overtime.
Great games.
Great games, yeah. Colts beat the Titans in overtime. They had a blocked punt return for a touchdown on special teams. Their offense played amazing, where Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce combined for the first wide receiver duo with over 100 yards in like almost 10 years since the beginning of the Andrew Luck days. And that offense looks much improved. That defense really couldn't stop much against the Titans, which was a bit concerning, seeing as the Titans don't have that good of an offense. The Bengals, on the other hand, Browning just had a historic game for a backup quarterback. Unbelievable. He played incredible. Arguably one of the best backup quarterback games of all time. The Bengals offense looked like it can really operate even without Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase playing incredible. T. Higgins finally back in the lineup. Joe Mixon, multiple touchdowns. Really no complaints with that offense, besides the fact that you're not really going to expect a ton of consistency from a backup quarterback. But let's see what he can do. The Bengals have a lot better offensive weapons than the Colts, but both teams have been really, really good on offense all season. Who do you have winning this one?
I think it comes down to Jake Browning. I think if Jake Browning proves himself to be like a reliable quarterback in a given week, I think the Bengals easily hand this one to the Colts. But there's a world in which he comes off a big game, it gets in his head, he puts a lot of pressure on himself, the Colts just rally all over him. So I think this game won't be that close, but I could see it going either way.
I'm gonna pick the Colts to win this one. Actually, both teams coming off really bad defensive performances, where they let up a ton of points on both sides. However, the Colts have been more consistent on offense this year than the Bengals, and there's really no saying how Browning will play just because he is still a backup quarterback. But I would not be surprised if this went the other way, but I'm going to pick the Colts to win this.
I agree. I'd go Colts.
Up next, we've got another divisional matchup between the Buccaneers and the Falcons. Both teams, the Buccaneers, the Buccaneers just barely beat the Panthers. Really great performance from Mike Evans, but really nobody else. And the Falcons also coming off a very narrow win, this time over the Jets. Jets games tend to be low scoring. That game was 13-8, pretty low scoring. Neither of these teams are very good. They're both still looking to win that division. Whoever wins this game actually takes the lead of that division. Neither team's that great, but I think the Buccaneers have more talent on their team.
I'm going to take Falcons.
You're going to take the Falcons, okay.
I think the Falcons have a better defense. I think A.J. Terrell is going to shut down Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans sometimes just has games where he gets shadowed by really good number one corners, and that really just sticks with him, as we've seen like a ton of times with the Saints, especially in the division. They've seen him, they know him. I think the Falcons' defense is going to be all over the Bucs' offense, and I think their offense will just be able to like put up some points, which is going to be enough.
All right, that's valid. I'm personally going to take the Buccaneers here, but this is one of the closest games in my opinion of the week. I could see this going either way.
Yeah.
Up next, we've got a matchup between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns. And before we get into this I think we can both agree this game's kind of going to rely on if Trevor Lawrence even plays in the first place.
He's not going to play.
Which is very unlikely. If he plays, I think the Jaguars have a really good shot, but I don't think he's going to play. It's very unlikely. So I think the Browns will win. Browns coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Rams. Their defense really couldn't shut much down, which is a big surprise for the Browns. The Jaguars, on the other hand, were scoring a ton, and then Trevor Lawrence got hurt, and they really just couldn't do much without him. So I think this one's pretty clear that if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play, it should be the Browns who win this game.
Yeah, I think the Browns' defense they're going to hold down the Jaguars.
And they're going to be so eager for a comeback game after how poorly that defense played against the Rams.
Yeah.
The Browns should win.
Yeah.
Up next, another divisional matchup, this time in the NFC North, between the Lions and the Bears. The Bears coming off a bye week after a nice win over the Vikings on Monday Night Football, where they didn't score any touchdowns, but their defense actually looked really improved. That defense has been improving throughout the entire season. Justin Fields looking relatively good, and DJ Moore has looked really good all season. The Lions, on the other hand, took a huge lead really early on against the Saints and then almost blew that game. The Lions never look comfortable when they're in the lead, which is really surprising. They have an amazing run game, and you would think they would be able to just run the clock out, but they always start throwing when they take a big lead. I don't have a ton of... the last time these two teams played, the Bears almost won. They were up by double-digit points with less than 5 minutes left and still somehow threw that game.
Classic.
So, not really sure what to think of that, but that does show that these interdivisional matchups tend to be pretty close games. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears take a lead, but the Lions are a much better team. They should win this game.
I'm going to pick the Bears.
You're going to pick the Bears, okay.
Jared Goff, historically bad on the road. They're playing at Chicago, which is not good weather conditions.
Is that one of the games that is...
Bad wind.
Okay.
I think that really helps Goff and Amon-Ra because he has a reliable receiver. He can just force feed on like slants or whatever, and wind is not going to impact those plays that much. But the Bears' defense has looked much improved. It's really bad weather in an away game for Goff. And I think the Bears' offense is competent enough to put up 20, 25 points against the Lions. Whereas I don't know if the Lions are able to do that.
The Lions' defense has been pretty bad.
Good run defense, good matchup for the Bears, but I feel like their pass defense isn't going to be good enough.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I think the Lions are just a better team, so I'm still going to pick the Lions.
Yeah.
Up next, another divisional matchup, this time between the Seahawks and the 49ers. The 49ers coming off a massive win over the Eagles, where Deebo Samuel had an incredible game, Brock Purdy had an incredible game, really, really high passer rating, over 140. Christian McCaffrey scored another touchdown. Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle also looked pretty good. And that defense was actually able to stop the Eagles, who they looked good at first and then just didn't do very much in the second half. There was some concern after the first quarter where the 49ers had negative yards, but they really proved that they are the more dominant team and one of the most dominant teams in the NFL right now. The Seahawks, on the other hand, you want to take that one?
I think the Seahawks can rally, but I think that the Niners' defense is going to be able to prevent the Seahawks from really doing anything.
You saw the Thursday Night Football game where the Seahawks actually had a really good offense against a good defense in the Cowboys.
Yes. I think that the 49ers defense, though, is a lot more sound. They're going to get to Geno. Geno has not been good this season against pressure, and the Cowboys, although really good at getting pressure, didn't get as much pressure as they needed to in that game. And I think that the Niners are just going to get to Geno. He's going to get frustrated. He's going to crumble under pressure. And I think if that O-line takes a massive step up, that there's a chance for the Seahawks, but I just don't see that happening.
That's fair. Again, I think the 49ers will win this game. They are a much more dominant team, but it's a divisional game. Seahawks tend to play the Niners close at first, but I think the Niners will pull away towards the end and actually win this game relatively big.
Yeah.
Up next, we've got a matchup between the Vikings and the Raiders. The Vikings, were they on bye?
They were on bye.
Yeah, the Vikings were on bye.
Raiders were also on bye.
Oh, and the Raiders were on bye. Great. Not much to say about either team. The Vikings looked really bad against the Bears 2 weeks ago before their bye. They scored a touchdown and still lost to the Bears, who didn't have a touchdown. The Raiders, they've been inconsistent all season. They started off really strong in that game against the Chiefs and then lost they started off 14-0 and then ended up losing 31-17.
Yeah.
So kind of blew that game. I don't think either team is going to be that incredible. Neither team has that good of a defense. I wouldn't be surprised to see this as somewhat of a shootout. I don't think it'll be like a really high scoring game.
I think the Vikings have a decent defense. There's a world in which Josh Jacobs runs all over them, but I don't really see that happening. I think Dobbs was kind of just tired. He's played 12 straight games for 2 different teams. He's been running around. He's been getting hit.
Well, he's coming off a bye week.
He's coming off a bye week with who Justin Jefferson, the best.
Oh yeah,
receiver
Jefferson's
in the NFL.
back.
I'm really excited to see what he can do with a competent receiver for once, and I think that if Max Crosby steps up on defense, then that's really the Raiders' best chance of winning.
I agree, but I'm also going to pick the Vikings. I assume that's your pick.
Yeah.
Up next, there's a lot of divisional matchups this week, I guess, because it's Broncos taking on the Chargers. The Broncos coming off their first loss in over a month to the Houston Texans. Russell Wilson was looking all right, and then he ended up throwing 3 interceptions in the second half and really ended up throwing that game for them. Their offense has been pretty competent all season, but their defense lately has been really, really good. They've forced a ton of turnovers, although they didn't have multiple turnovers in that game against the Texans. But they've been a really impressive unit as of late. The Chargers, on the other hand, coming off a 6-0 victory over the Patriots. Really terrible game. They scored twice on field goals, and that was it. Offense couldn't get anything going. Herbert didn't look good. Keenan Allen and the rest of the receiving corps looked all right at best. Quentin Johnston still dropping balls. I don't think the Chargers are a very good team, but it's mainly, as I've been saying all season, due to their coaching. The Broncos are a better team. They've been rallying. They've got a much better defense. I think the Broncos win this one.
It's funny. The Chargers let up 0 points this week. The Broncos are a defensive team, and yet I think this game is going to be a shootout. I think this is going to be a bounce-back Chargers offense week. They're clearly frustrated. They just scored 6 points against a bad Patriots team.
Yeah, but that defense isn't terrible.
Defense isn't terrible. But I think they're going to call quick plays. They're going to just trust their receivers. They're going to trust Herbert. And I think Herbert's going to step up against this team. And I think defensively, they clearly don't have a pass defense, even though last week they looked amazing. I think that Sutton and Judy are going to have good weeks, and I think it's just going to be a high-scoring game that the Chargers win by, 2 touchdowns.
You're taking the Chargers, okay.
Taking the Chargers.
I'm taking the Broncos. Their defense has just been too good lately, so I don't see this being nearly as much of a shootout as you think it is, just because neither offense has shown that they can be consistently amazing this season, and the Broncos and both defenses have been performing relatively well lately, but we'll see. Up next, what could be the game of the week in Bills versus the Chiefs.
Might as well be a divisional matchup as well.
Might as well be. The Bills coming off a bye week, very badly needed. They're 6-6,
Yeah.
and they've looked really inconsistent. Is the biggest takeaway for them. They have games where they're incredible on offense. They have games where they're incredible on defense, and then they have games where they just can't do anything on offense. And it's very not like the Bills for them to have these really poor offensive performances, but I don't see that happening against the Chiefs. These games are always really close, always really good games, and tend to be shootouts. And while the Chiefs have a really good defense and the Bills tend to have a good defense, I do see this being a shootout. The only problem with that is the Bills' offense has been inconsistent, and the Chiefs' offense has been even worse, as they don't really have receivers. Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce are like the only two relatively consistent weapons on that offense besides the running back in Isaiah Pacheco. But Pacheco's a little banged up, and this will be a close game. I think the Bills will actually win this, although I would not be surprised if the Chiefs came back and won this game, as they're coming off a loss. They're clearly frustrated with how they've been performing. They lost to the Packers last week on primetime. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs are angry and do get this one, but I do think the Bills will win.
I could see it going either way. I feel like the Bills tend to have the advantage in the regular season than the Chiefs. However, I haven't really seen the Chiefs needing to play for something as much as they do in this game, as playing for the 1 seed, especially if the Ravens lose earlier on. I think this game will probably be relatively high scoring, but at the same time, the Chiefs don't have receivers. The Bengals don't have a consistent offense. The Bills. The Bills don't have a consistent offense. The Chiefs have a really good defense, and the Bills can have a really good defense. I think that this game comes down to if the Chiefs' offense can take a step up against a decent defense, and if the Bills shine on offense with Diggs and Davis both taking a huge leap forward from what they've been playing like, I think that the Bills win this game pretty convincingly. Otherwise, I think the Chiefs are going to be able to win a close game.
All right, that's a pretty valid take. I think it'll be pretty close regardless, but I'm going to pick the Bills. Up next, what's arguably the most important game, especially for the NFC, of the entire week. On Sunday Night Football, we have another divisional matchup in the Eagles versus the Cowboys. The Eagles coming off a loss to the 49ers. They're still in first. They still have the best record in the NFL and the best record in the NFC. However, if the Cowboys beat them in this game, then they're tied in record. They have a tied record in head-to-head matchups at 1-1, and the 49ers end up taking the 1 seed, assuming they beat the Seahawks in the game prior. That's all assuming the Cowboys do win. If the Eagles win, they most likely pull away and will most likely take the 1 seed for the NFC. But if the Cowboys win, then it's really between Cowboys, Eagles, Niners, and Lions for that 1 seed. And more importantly for both these teams is that the Eagles and Cowboys then both have a chance to win their division, and the other one has to play road games for the playoffs. So this game has huge implications. Both teams are very good. Cowboys coming off a massive shootout on Thursday Night Football versus the Seahawks. Their defense looked pretty vulnerable, but their offense looked amazing. Dak Prescott playing at an MVP level, and the Eagles, they looked really vulnerable as well. Their defense got torched by the 49ers, Deebo Samuel especially, and their offense just could not keep up. I do actually think that the Cowboys will take this one. I think it'll be incredibly close, maybe even the closest game of the week, but the Cowboys barely lost in that last game that they played the Eagles, as they caught the ball on the half-yard line, and as time expired, had they scored that touchdown, they would have won. Can't really get much closer than that. No. So I do think the Cowboys will get the best of the Eagles here, especially since the Eagles are coming off a loss. They probably are lacking a little bit of confidence in the department of facing good teams, but we'll see. What do you think?
It's weird. Early in the season, I would say that these are two of the top 3 or 5 defenses in the NFL, whereas now I feel as if both defenses have weaknesses, and I feel like this game could be just a huge shootout. I think the Cowboys win. I think the Eagles don't have a strong enough pass defense to deal with how Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and the rest of the Cowboys offense has looked in just the passing game. But also, when they need to run it, they sometimes can, just because their offensive line's been pretty good.
I completely agree with that. On to Monday Night Football. We've got 2 Monday Night Football games, the first of which is the Green Bay Packers taking on the New York Giants. The Giants were... Did they play last week? Who did they play? I think the Giants were... Oh, the Giants were on bye last week. They haven't looked great. I mean, all season they looked really bad, but Tommy DeVito has played all right lately. The They did actually win their most recent game. It was a battle of terrible between them and the Patriots, and they came out in a really low-scoring game. Packers, on the other hand, just beat the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. They've been much improved. Jordan Love playing really well. Their receivers have been stepping up, although Christian Watson did get hurt in that game. Who knows if he'll play. But the Packers are a much better team than the Giants. They just beat, as I said, the Chiefs on primetime, and look like a much different team than they did in the first half of the season. So the Packers should win this game.
I think this is going to be a very low-scoring game. I mean, both defenses are decent. Both offenses, I think the Packers' offense shows flashes, but if they're missing Christian Watson, I think that the receiving crew doesn't take that much of a hit just because we've seen guys step up like Dontavian Wicks.
Jaden Reed.
Jaden Reed's been good.
Romeo Dobbs.
I think just they have the consistency on the offense to really pull away in this game, and we really haven't seen the Giants' offense do that much, although Tommy DeVito has been good.
Yeah. So I assume you picked the Packers too?
Yeah. I'd say the Packers by 10.
And then our last game of the week is also on Monday Night Football. It's the Titans taking on the Dolphins, and I don't think this game will be anywhere near close. The Dolphins beat up on bad teams. They just did it to the Commanders last week. Tyreek Hill playing incredible, on pace for over 2,000 yards still. Had another 150-yard, 2-touchdown game last week. He's just playing incredible. Their offense cannot be stopped, especially against these bad teams. Titans, on the other hand, really close game against the Colts. Their defense looked really vulnerable. Their offense actually looked relatively decent, but it was mainly running through Derrick Henry, who did get hurt. I think he's going to play, but I don't see a lot happening positively for the Titans in this game. Their offense tends to not be very good, and their defense is vulnerable, and the Dolphins take advantage of vulnerable defenses.
Yeah, I think that the Dolphins should clearly win this game. They'll probably run up the score on the Titans. Titans will probably score 2 or 3 touchdowns, but I think the Dolphins should hand it to them pretty convincingly.
Looking at my power rankings for Week 10, at number 10, I've got the Colts. Their offense has been way better than anybody would have expected all season, but their defense is a little bit suspect. They really do keep putting up a lot of points in each of their games, though, so I do have a decent amount of confidence in them. They're in the playoffs as of right now, and they have been consistently showing up to games.
I'd put them near 10 too. Yeah, very consistent, good offense. Would be excited to see what they could do with Taylor in the playoffs.
In at number 9, I've got the Texans. C.J. Stroud has been electric. That whole receiving core has been amazing, although that loss of Tank Dell is going to definitely impact them. Their defense has only been improving over the past couple weeks as Derek Stingley and Will Anderson have started to really perform. I do see a lot of potential for this team, but I can't really put them any higher quite yet, especially with that Tank Dell injury and not knowing how that's going to impact them.
I completely agree. Stroud's looked unbelievable. The offenses look great. The defense is improving, but I don't think that they've been dominant enough to put them any higher than that.
In at number 8, I've got the Jaguars. They beat the Texans a couple weeks ago in a close divisional game. The Jaguars, when Trevor Lawrence is healthy, are one of the best teams in the league. Trevor Lawrence is unfortunately hurt, and they lost that game to the Bengals, so I did drop them a decent amount. But I think when they're fully healthy, they are a top team in the league, in the entire NFL. One of the best. They were fighting for that 1 seed in the AFC, which says a lot about just how good they are.
I would say that they've been unbelievable as their record shows, but I think, yeah, I would have about 7 teams higher than them that have just been more dominant.
In at 7, I've got the Chiefs. They're falling. They just keep falling. They lost to the Packers. They played the Raiders really poorly at first, although they did come back. They lost to the Eagles. They've lost some games that they also shouldn't have, and their receiving core is really bad. That offense really just cannot consistently perform, although Pacheco has played really well, and that defense has been electric.
I would put the Chiefs a little bit higher, a few spots probably. I think that in a season they have a top 5 defense, I would argue, at the moment. They have a top 5 offensive line, and all that would be missing is an offense which still has Patrick Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid leading them. So I think that although right now they may not be performing, looking forward, especially in the playoffs, they just have all of the pieces to make it work to be a really, really good team.
In at number 6, I've got the Lions. They've also fallen a bit just because they can't hold a lead. They really struggle with that. They also play bad teams kind of poorly like they did against the Bears a couple weeks ago. They're just inconsistent, but they have so much potential on this team. Their offense and defense can both be really good, although their pass defense is not like anything special at all. But I do think this team can be really good and can be a Super Bowl contender. They just haven't been able to prove it consistently.
I agree. They have a lot of youth, a lot of upside. They have Hutchinson, Amon-Ra, Gibbs, all young studs. I'm excited to see what this team can do.
In at 5, and then also at 4, Cowboys at 5, Dolphins at 4. These two teams, the reason I'm combining them in at this entry at 4 and 5 and have them so close to each other is because they both beat up on really bad teams. They both are really performing well on both offense and defense, but they haven't been beating really good teams. They haven't proven it against contenders. Cowboys have that matchup this week against the Eagles. If they win, they'll definitely go higher. The Dolphins don't have a close matchup for another week or two, but they'll have their opportunity to prove it as well. The only reason I have the Dolphins slightly higher is because that offense has more potential, it has more speed, and it's just more explosive.
Give me the Dolphins over the Cowboys. I think it's pretty close, although I think the Dolphins' defense is arguably better than the Cowboys without Trayvon Diggs, and I think that, especially with Ramsey now back, and I think that offense is just far more explosive, as much as the Cowboys' offense has now been consistently putting up insane numbers.
In at number 3, I've got the Ravens coming off a bye, but they've just been amazing all season. They beat up on even good teams like the Lions and the Seahawks. They have an explosive offense when they need to. They're a little inconsistent, though, and then their defense is amazing. They have an amazing run defense, great pass defense, just amazing players on both sides of the ball. Great team.
I'd move them a little bit down now that Andrews is out. I feel like they don't have consistent enough running backs to really have a profound run game, and I think that their passing game, their receivers, although they take major steps up at times, I don't think any of them have been consistently really good receivers, although Zay Flowers is now starting to fill that role. So I kind of want to see more consistency from the offense before I keep them up there, because again, they're just surrounded by the Dolphins, teams that are just putting up numbers, and their defense, although very, very good, not as good as like the 49ers or even the Chiefs, I would say.
In at number 2, I've got the Eagles. They still have the best record in the NFL. They're still finding ways to win games. But I'm definitely concerned after that massive loss to the 49ers. They definitely looked vulnerable. But they've been putting up numbers on offense. Their defense has typically been able to hold their opponents, and they win close games. Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback when playing from behind, which is exactly what this team has been winning games off of.
I agree. I think 2, lock it in, forget it. Their offense is just so good. Their defense can be so good. We just need to see more consistency.
And then at number 1, it's the 49ers. They just beat what was the best team in football, and I really think that title has been now handed back to the 49ers. They had that 3-game losing streak at one point in the season, but before that, they were thought to be the best team. They're thought to be the best team again now. They're the most explosive, not the most explosive offense, as the Dolphins definitely are more explosive, but they're up there as one of the most explosive offenses. Their defense can put pressure. Their pass defense has only improved over the past few weeks, and the run defense is one of the best in the league. They're just a completely well-rounded team with weapons on everywhere on offense and defense. They're my number 1 pick without a doubt.
I agree. They need to stay healthy. Every year they have injuries. If they can stay healthy, McCaffrey can run over teams. Debo can run over teams. Kittle can run over teams. Ayuk's looked amazing. The defense is incredible. They just need to make sure everyone stays healthy.
And that will be all for this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.